Hello and welcome to the Merlin Lock podcast. I'm Merle.
I'm Locke.
Set sail and low expectations for everything nerd, accompanied by a healthy, albeit shameful helping of pointless banter, lack of focus, and questionably acquired knowledge. Now, to start us off, Locke, what I want to get into, look back on your life at your most formidable moments, right?
Uh-huh.
And I want to know what the most, once again, formidable games were throughout your life. It doesn't have to be only when you were a child, but maybe difficult times during your life, or video games that you've played to like get your mind off things, or to help you through some tough times, just trying to get some enjoyment, or entertainment, something to brighten your spirits.
I can think of a lot of games that I played a lot of over the years. Like, to the point that it almost became an addiction to become a completionist, where I just couldn't see myself fully being done with the game until I knew that I had done absolutely everything.
Okay, all right.
And that has
What are
caused
those
problems with
games?
future games. But I'd say things like when I had the Nintendo 64, I would play what was that? Super Mario 64. I would have a lot of issues getting past certain levels. I would have to get away from it for a while, go back, try it again, complete it, run into a new set of issues, rinse and repeat.
Okay, yeah. Super Mario 64 was a big one for a lot of people, especially of our age. I know I, for one, put quite a bit of time myself into Super Mario 64. I know when I was a kid, I played a lot of. I think it was mostly on N64, my most formidable games. I played a lot of Banjo Kazooie.
Right.
That one was a big one for me. I played a lot of that.
I can also think of when I had the PlayStation 2, I would play a lot of games like Spider-Man and then Spider-Man 2, which was, at its time, definitely an amazing thing to me. Having like an open world playing as a superhero.
Was that the one with the fog everywhere? Or like if you fell into the fog, you died?
No, that was going back even further than that, and I had that on my computer. It was probably emulated. I had somebody who had emulated games on a disc for me, and I was able to play a lot of like PlayStation 1 versions of games. So that would have been like one of the Spider-Mans where if you stopped swinging and you weren't at a building, you would just fall to your death.
Right, right. Yeah, I remember that one. I was so fond, going back to Banjo Kazooie, I was so fond of that game and got so many enjoyable hours out of it. It was just such a lighthearted thing, and it was so entertaining. And I tried to. Um, Rare came out with this rare replay thing where they put all the games, all their oldest games, into a big bundle and made it available on the newer consoles. And it was such a nostalgia trip that I ended up purchasing that. And I wanted to introduce my daughter to it, and she she was hesitant because she's really into like the newer the newer stuff that most kids are into, which is Minecraft and Fortnite. She really enjoys those games. But I wanted her to experience like the kind of games that I played that I enjoyed most. So I had her play some Banjo Kazooie, and she couldn't do it. It was too difficult. She she kept she kept dying over and over and over again, and she got so frustrated, and then she just quit. And I was like, oh man. So I started playing it with her, where because I wanted her to keep trying, but she wouldn't do the difficult parts. So I started taking the controller and doing those difficult parts for her, and even I was having a lot of trouble. I was like, wow, these games are so much harder than I remember them being. And but it was such a fun time being able to go back and do that, and I really appreciated that Rare made that move to do the Rare replay. Is there any other big games for you in your life? Difficult times you had, maybe even as an adult, that you stuck to.
I had played a lot of Grand Theft Auto over the years. Now,
Grand Theft Auto.
now
Okay.
here's the thing. So Grand Theft Auto, I had to prove to my parents that I was mature enough to be able to get that game,
Oh.
and not just that, but our family friend who bought a lot of the games for me, and like a lot of the consoles for the holidays. The one day I remember being like, "Ooh, Grand Theft Auto," and we were at like some sort of. It wasn't GameStop. It was FYE, I think. If you remember
FYE
FYE.
for your entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were there, and I seen this like trilogy pack, or it had like Grand Theft Auto Vice City, it had Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto 2, and I was like, ooh, like I want it. And he goes, "Are you sure?" So
Okay.
I eventually was able to get him to get it for me, and just had to prove that I was still going to be mature enough. I wasn't going to go around pretending like I'm killing people, blah, 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 blah. And Vice City was probably one of my favorites out of all of them.
I feel like Grand Theft Auto 3 was the one that I played the most.
Mm.
I remember, so we weren't able to purchase it ourselves, myself and my brother. It was one of those things where our cousins had gotten it because their parents didn't really pay attention to that kind of stuff. They're like, "Oh, you want this game? All right, fine, you can have it." So they got these very mature games, and when we would go to our cousin's house to check out these games, we would play a lot of Grand Theft Auto 3. And I just remember as soon as we sat down to start, my cousin would sit there like and and go through like the ninja actions, typing in all the cheat codes, all the best cheat codes.
Mm.
His fingers would just fly while he was typing them all in, them all memorized. And we had a lot of fun with that. We never played the game how it was intended to be played. We always just played it with all the cheat codes and all the ridiculousness that came along with that, and we just enjoyed the chaos. Really, it was just a way to like let loose, I suppose.
Yeah.
Did you ever get into the Final Fantasies?
Did not. No.
No.
Nope.
No. Okay.
Not at all. Um, yeah, I slacked in that nerd department. I played a lot of other games that were kind of nerdier, off the wall, goofy. found myself playing a lot of like The Grinch in like 2000 when the movie came out. There was a game that you could play as the Grinch, and I was like all about it. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
don't see that a lot of kids that we grew up with that were playing that type of game. At least I didn't think so. I was just like, I'm unique. Look at me playing this new game.
Oh man, that is odd because I don't even remember there being a game based on that movie.
Yep, sure was.
Huh.
I played it all. I even watched recently Game Grumps. They posted a video of them playing the game, and
Oh,
I
okay.
seen how terrible they were at it. I don't remember who it was that was controlling it at the time, but they played it terribly. And sorry to them, but it
So they did.
it
They
was
did it dirty.
it was painful to watch. They're like, "What do we do? What do we do?" And it's weird when you think about it, right? So we grew up with these games that didn't really explain anything about how to do it. You just had to figure it out. It didn't give you
Right.
pointers and stuff like games nowadays. They like the spoon feed your instructions now, but when we grew up, we had to just
Nah,
kind of
that's
learn it.
true. Yeah, we were more analytical and observant. I feel like because we were forced to be
Hmm.
by these video games, but now it's more of a, yeah, like you said, hand-holdy
Hmm.
and spoon-fed. Just it's just to make video games more leisurely than they used to be, I suppose.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I don't feel like it's a good thing. But
You don't think
that's
so?
me. 'Cause I feel like it does force you to kind of have to use your mind, which is more fun to me. Some days I kind of want to do something that's mind numbing that I can just do, but I do miss those days of having games that don't absolutely hold your hand. But then you've had me play a couple of games where I get into it and I have no idea what I'm doing. And even when they tell you what to do, it still seems like there's so much more.
I feel like it's because we've just gotten used to it now, used to the hand holding,
Yeah.
and now we're when we go into these games that refuse to do that, or the developers refuse to do that, and they want to go back to the quote unquote old ways, I suppose. I guess it's abrasive in a sense where we're not expecting it and we don't react well to it. We just don't understand. Anyway, no, actually going back to that, it's I remember when you had me play, or we jumped in together for the first time, the World of Warcraft Classic.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
and that was a total change of pace because I didn't start playing World of Warcraft until I didn't start playing it seriously until Battle for Azeroth came out.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
and even when that came out, I went all the way back to
You were still
Warlords of
exploring
Draenor.
old content the whole entire
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Come, Blue.
I wanted.
Let's experience new content. No, wait. I want to explore old content.
I'm looking at something. No, cause yeah, when I got into it, I wasn't entirely sure everything that was going on, so I was trying to go back at least a little bit to get a better idea of how things are going, and I was enjoying it so much that I was missing out on a lot of the new content because I was trying to, enjoy the older
Right,
stuff.
right.
Uh, yeah, so I did miss out on a lot of raids and dungeons and what have you. As far as like the group finder goes, how it's easier to get into those raids and dungeons before a new expansion comes out. So I missed out on some of that, but I still had a good time. But anyway, when we tried out Classic, we were doing it was around when the Lich King expansion was released, and that was a pretty steep learning curve as far as like getting used to how it was in Classic. It was a lot less handholdy. Like you actually had to read everything and understand things before you set off to do the quest, because there wasn't like an obvious path like there is now. And I remember we got to a point where we were picking up quests and then we got lost. That was where we left off. Like we couldn't find where we went, and we kept getting distracted by all this other stuff until the point that we're like, all right, we have no idea where we started and where we need to go from that starting quest. And it just turned out to be a mess. But it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot because it felt like more of an adventure.
Yeah.
Like not knowing. It felt less of a point A to point B to point A to point B to point A to point B. It was just, here's a quest, figure it out.
Yep.
If you can.
Yep.
And it felt so much more freeing and like I said, adventurous, and I didn't get any nostalgia because I never played World of Warcraft. Well, I mean I did, but I did play it seriously back then. I get the appeal. I understand the appeal because I personally enjoyed it a lot. As far as formative games go, I'd be willing to bet that World of Warcraft was one of those for you.
Absolutely. I couldn't even tell you how many hours I ended up putting into it. As long as I had game time, I was putting it in. I started hopping in when there used to be advertisements of Mr. T coming on TV talking about playing World of Warcraft.
And you started playing during Wrath of the Lich King, right?
That's when I started playing more heavily. I started playing just as Burning Crusade was coming out. Yeah, there were still Mr. T hand grenades when I signed up, and what these hand grenades did was they gave you a night elf looking head with a mohawk that looked like his character on the advertisements. So,
right.
That puts a little date on it for you.
Yeah, I remember when before I got into WoW, I played a lot of Guild Wars 2. That was my first introduction to MMOs. Before that, I played. There's a period when I was a teenager where I just played like the most well advertised games, and I didn't play that much games during my teenage years. It was more, skateboarding, meeting girls, saving up money at your crappy job to finally buy a car, and playing sports and things like normal teenage things. So I miss out on a lot of those, the nerdy game stuff as a teenager, and I did return to it until my adult years. So I had to play a lot of catch up, admittedly, and I feel like I've definitely put in the time. I want to talk about the think back to your childhood and games you would play where, say, you got all your friends together, or you were having a sleepover or something like that. What was some of your go-to games that you and your friends would play?
Well, as far as party games, I feel like when I had the Nintendo 64, I was big on playing Mario Party because I hate my friends.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed doing that from time to time, but I'd say some of my biggest games that I did play with friends over the years was like Guitar Hero.
Oof, Guitar Hero was a big one, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I played a lot of Guitar Hero. I remember my brother got it, and he was so good at, like, he was playing on hard mode and stuff where it was super fast, and I couldn't keep up, but it was still a lot of fun. It was a good time, but it wasn't something that I heavily got into.
Hmm.
As far as the party games, as you said, we did do like the big ones where it was Mario Party or Super Smash, or I remember spending a lot of time playing Diddy Kong Racing.
Right.
That was a big one for us. We played, I mean, we played Mario Kart as well, but I remember Diddy Kong Racing being one of those ones where we were hooked. It was so much fun. We played it as often as we possibly could. I do remember going over to my buddy's place where it was one of those things where, those, like, there was only certain kids that had the Sega. Yeah.
Right.
I feel like it was not necessarily the most spoiled of kids got the Sega, but there's so few people that had it. At least when I was growing up, and these friends, these were treasured friends, because I mean, you would never have another opportunity to play the Sega. I mean, come on, man.
Right.
I remember going over to my buddy's place for sleepovers, and this was one of my best friends, and he's he's still one of my best friends even now. Like, we've kept in contact for all these years, ever since we were children. I remember we would have these long sleepovers where I would just stay at his house as often as possible. We would play things like, what was the Toad one? Battletoads?
Battletoads?
Yeah, I played a lot of Battletoads and like Metal Slug. I don't think we played much Sonic. Sonic was one of those where it was just, that was one of those things where the person who owned the Sega got to play Sonic and have fun with that, and the other person the second player was just Tails floating around, not being useful whatsoever,
Right.
or having any impact on the game. And it was kind of bullcrap, and I hated that.
There was also another game that a friend of mine had shown me back in the day that I tried out. It was like a horror game. But the only way to play it was I had to download Mozilla Firefox. I told her, I was like, I don't want Mozilla. But in truth, when I look back at it now, Mozilla was probably still better than having Internet Explorer.
Mozilla's the one that I use currently, today.
I got shit. I forget what day it was. Jane Doe came. She seen that I was using, it's like Edge or something.
Oh, Microsoft Edge. Yeah.
I was like, well, yeah, use that. It's like Internet Explorer. No, it's better than Internet Explorer. Trust me, I remember Internet Explorer. I was there.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is much better than Internet Explorer.
I
Yeah,
was like,
I
it's
can agree with you
almost
there.
like if Google Chrome and Internet Explorer had a baby.
Yeah, it just. I feel like Microsoft Edge just uses less. What was it, memory or whatever that bogs down when you're using the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as impactful as Google Chrome. At least I don't remember how Internet Explorer was in that regard.
I remember you would have to go into your cookie folder, try to get rid of a bunch of information just so you could load up a web page.
Oh, yeah. Like I still to this day, when I get a computer or set up a computer and I have like the preferred internet stuff, I always set it to erase absolutely everything when I shut down the browser, just so I don't have to bother with anything. You know, it is somewhat inconvenient, admittedly, as far as getting back to your regular websites and none of your passwords are saved or anything. And you have to relog into everything every time you open it up. But at the same time, I mean, I guess it is a good form of security,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. Now, let's say throughout your entire gaming career, yeah. What name your top 3 RPGs of all time?
I mean, this even goes for MMOs, right? I imagine.
Yeah.
So I'd probably say between World of Warcraft that I spent many hours on, Star Wars The Old Republic, which was another absolutely fun MMO that pulled you into the Star Wars universe. I mean, I feel like it's a cop out, but I guess I could say like Elder Scrolls, or Elder Scrolls Online.
Okay.
Like I do
No,
enjoy it.
that's not a cop out. Man, Elder Scrolls is so good. It's such a good story. Go on.
I what I've noticed, and especially since I decided to get it on the PC, what I've noticed is I spent so much time just being like, ooh, a mission, and just collecting and collecting and collecting, and barely actually finishing quests once they send me way out of my way.
Okay. Yeah. No, I keep everything. I like to organize as I'm going through. It's more like when I'm working on quests, I like to keep it regional. If anything is sending me outside of that region,
Uh-huh.
I will not touch it. I'll only do everything within that region that I'm focusing on. And then once all that's complete, then I'll go to the one that reaches outside of that region.
Uh-huh.
Because just so I'm not overwhelmed by quests. And it helps me to better follow the stories because I when I first started out working on these types of things, it was I would I would do exactly that, just to collect a bunch of missions, and sometimes it would take me out of the area and collect missions from the other place, and then eventually I'd get to the point where I'm like, oh, I need to go back and complete those missions. So I would go back and start working on those missions, but I would have no idea what's going on because I've already forgotten who it started with, what the issues were, how like the whole story of that singular quest was lost to me because I've been distracted by all these other quests that I've been working on.
Right.
And so like I decided early on that I would start doing it region by region, just so I could better follow the stories. Do you think that's something that some people fuss or refuse to fuss with, because I know there's a lot of people who don't really necessarily care about the quest lines, and they skip all the dialogue, and they just rush through the missions just so they can complete an area.
Oh, absolutely. I feel there's probably a select few that actually care and listen and stay around for it, but I've witnessed, even today, because I was playing for a little bit, I witnessed like a group of 2, 3 people that I can only assume were together, and they were just grabbing and going. Like, not too long after they came up to the quest giver, they were already gone.
Well, I don't know what it is exactly that they don't. Are they just looking? They might just be looking for levels and just completion, rather than soaking in what the story is. Now, this is just my own personal preference. I'm not judging other people that don't go by this, but when I'm playing an RPG of any description, I'm looking to play it as an RPG.
Right.
Where I know what's going on. I take in the story. I enjoy it. I appreciate the story writing and the bigger picture and how it contributes to the bigger picture. And I just find games so much more enjoyable if I take it in like that. Because when I play a game, I don't mean for there to be an end goal. I want to enjoy the adventure, and that's how I pretty much put myself in, or I embrace that world and the story that's being told, and I just find it so much more enjoyable, and I can't understand the people who just skip through it. Like, what is your goal? Like, why are you playing an RPG if you don't want to participate in the story? Do you have any insight into that?
I know that a part of it depends on the game. Let's think of a couple of examples of games where you just kind of want to play through the story missions. You might listen in here or there. Like Star Wars, right? In Star Wars, you can make many decisions, being like good, bad. So a lot of your other side missions are just the same. Like, they all read the same. So unless you're making a big decision at that moment, there's really no point.
Okay, so you're saying that the case is probably the fact that these people have played through these missions before, so they already know the story, and they're perhaps using an alt character where they're just trying to get through the story that they already know.
Right. So, like, I have, over 16 alts on World of Warcraft, so I can spare to skip out on a couple of the same stories that I've heard.
Okay, all right, I can understand that. I feel like World of Warcraft is one of those things where us personally, we go through these stories. When you're picking up quests, it's just text, and you have to read the text. Yeah.
Right.
I know there's people out there who just skip it, even if it's the first time, where they just skip the text because they don't feel like reading it.
Right.
Whereas what I love with like Elder Scrolls is there's the voice actor. They have a voice actor for every single line of dialogue. It's a great way to get into the story because it's performed for you rather than just posted up in a wall of text. And I do love that. But I do also love the freedom of World of Warcraft where they put up that text, and if you're playing with someone, like if when me and you are playing together, we like to do our own little voice acting practices.
Right.
and, and it makes for such an entertaining session of gameplay, and like especially trying to do the accents.
Like we
Oh
know, I
man.
am terrible with your Scottish Dwarven accents. Just absolutely
and
terrible.
I and my attempts at the
The
Zandalari
trolls, which is
uh
like almost like a Jamaican.
yeah, it's always Jamaican, and I like sometimes like I'll start catching on to it, but then we'll go like 10 minutes without seeing any of it, and I'll completely lose it again. Like I am awful at that accent, and I just have the hardest time trying to like nail it down. It's so much fun. It makes for just an entertaining time. Like actually, legitimately uh, trying to act out these scenes or these quests. And I feel like, man, if there's any people looking to be a voice actor out there, like if you want to pursue that as a career or something, I highly recommend playing some World of Warcraft with a friend and trying to act out these quest lines. It's such good practice, and and you'll get a lot of laughs, a lot of value out of it, especially trying to pull off these different accents. It's it's so entertaining. Thank you for joining us on the Merle and Locke podcast. If you enjoyed this banter, please consider becoming a patron by going to patreon.com/Merle and Locke, or simply follow the link in the description. Thank you.